Welcome to Discover the Difference, a podcast brought to you by C3. I'm your host, Jamie Reed. Today, Gabe and I have the distinct pleasure of having Matt Stevens on the show. Matt takes us on a journey where he had a strong commitment to excellence at every phase of his life, through high school, where he attended college at Annapolis, and then transitioned into becoming a Navy SEAL. After leaving the SEAL team, he went on to join a tech company before pursuing his passion as the CEO of the Honor Foundation. The Honor Foundation is an organization that's near and dear to the hearts of everyone at C3 and helps our Special Force members transition from the active military world into the civilian world. They're doing amazing things. They're continuing to expand their offering into supporting spouses and even the greater military community beyond Special Forces through a new program called Vector Accelerator. You're gonna enjoy listening to Matt talk about all aspects of his life and how he has consistently achieved excellence on this show of Discover the Difference. Well, Matt, maybe take us back. For you, what was life like growing up? Where'd you grow up? Family life? Were you playing with G.I. Joes? And where did the vision for military life and or becoming a Navy SEAL introduce itself? That was like one really long question.
Yeah.
Feel free to take it where you want.
I'll try to answer all those questions. Started growing up in Binghamton, New York. Dad worked for IBM. Mom was a nurse. They split up when I was pretty young. Ended up moving in with my dad. My sister and I did. He moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. So we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina when I was 10, I think, 1979. And don't have a strong background, military family or anything like that. Had an uncle who served in Vietnam and then as an Air Force jet mechanic, and then later on joined the Navy as a maintenance officer in a fighter squadron. But really it wasn't front and center of my mind at all. I just, played sports. Baseball was my thing. Thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player, but I actually couldn't hit very well. So that didn't work out.
That can be a problem for that dream.
Yeah, that's a slight problem. And I'll tell you a story about the Naval Academy baseball team tryout as well.
All right.
But honestly, as I was progressing through high school, I worked hard and got good grades. And frankly, I just didn't want to be average, right? All my friends growing up in Charlotte going to UNC, NC State, a couple would migrate out of state, but that was, mostly it. We did have a ROTC program in high school, but I thought they were all losers, to be honest with you, and didn't even cross my mind. But then when I was a sophomore, we had to go to an award ceremony, at the end of the year, and this kid got an appointment to the Air Force Academy. And I ran cross country with him, and the guy that presented him a little certificate got up on stage like, hey, this is the equivalent of a $250,000 all expense, scholarship. And when he graduates, he's going to fly fighter jets and, he's off and running. And I was like, wow, that's pretty unique.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Powerful.
And so I started looking into it. This is 1985-ish, so no internet. You actually mail off something to get a catalog from the academy. And this uncle who was in the Navy invited me up to go on a Tiger cruise at the time. This is all pre-9/11. So what they would do is take families of the service members out for a day from Norfolk, Virginia on a carrier, and they do flight ops right in front of you. And I was like,
oh, wow,
that is badass. And then Top Gun came out, 86 or something like that. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I really
you going to be Maverick or Goose?
I wanted to be Maverick.
Okay.
Yeah. So
nobody wants to be dead. I mean, that was a trick question. It was a trick question.
How about you? Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
So I started focusing on that and really thought that was the right fit for me. Just so because I had no idea what it was going to entail, but I wasn't going to sell insurance, for example. I was like, I don't know what.
That sounds like a bash. Damn. The dig. What a dig.
Not a dig. I didn't know what I didn't know, but I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Could we pause there? Because you used a word earlier in there I wanted to circle back to. And you said you wanted to be excellent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we actually talked about that in our organization quite a bit. You know, like we're not trying to be your average Joe insurance guys, you know. And excellence is something that usually comes from motivation somewhere like deep in the soul. Like what does that trace back to for you?
You also mentioned hard work too. I was noticed,
Well,
which is not usually a theme of a teenager.
yeah, I don't know, but maybe it stems from growing up with just a father who was working all the time and, you know, no motherly influence on the day to day. So I was the epitome of the latchkey kid. Dad's working. So like we moved to a new town and finds a neighbor who we don't know. Is like, hey, do you mind taking care of my 10-year-old for like 3 hours every day? And then, so I was like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go home and, you know, do my thing. So I think that is probably part of it. And just realizing that I was going to have to work for anything that I wanted, right? And so back to the baseball story, I was super focused on it. I lived across the street from UNCC, University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I'd gone to a baseball camp there and met the coach when I was maybe in junior high, sophomore in high school. And I walked up to him one day at his practice, and I said, hey, do you mind can I practice with your team? And he let me practice with the college baseball team as like a sophomore and a junior. So that's pretty cool. And I'd go work out on my own.
But they didn't teach you how to hit there?
They tried. It didn't work out.
All right.
Yeah. When I got to the Naval Academy, I didn't get recruited for baseball. It said, if you get in, come try out. So plebe summer, you can go try out. And so I did. And the tryout was a 40-yard dash. And I was a shortstop. So you had to throw to first base 2 throws from the hole in shortstop. And that was fine. But my 5'2", 40 didn't wow them. And I lasted about 2 days. So the story is I played D1 baseball.
There you go.
2 days.
Well, Mia's judging you because she was a 4-year starter at Oregon State. And we recruited her from third base coach of San Diego State. She hates us talking about her on these podcasts. So I just had to slide it in there.
Yeah, make sure
I'm envious.
Make sure you don't cut that part.
It's staying.
I'm envious. Yeah, so that was the end of my storied baseball career. So, yeah, so I don't know what it is, but there are a lot of common themes with guys in the teams, a lot of broken families, a lot of adversity early on, and most of them played sports.
Was the lack of the presence of your mom any sort of driving force inside you?
I don't think so, or I didn't know at the time. I became very good at compartmentalizing. Like I got to work and I'll play. But, you know, I learned early on that you can pay now and play later, or play now and pay later. Either way, you're going to pay.
Well said.
I think everybody has that. Tried to instill that in my kids with hard work up front to earn the opportunity to do what you want to do, not be forced into a particular line of work or, you know.
Like insurance.
I like that pay now.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, you're going to pay one way or the other.
I could imagine you saying that in front of some of the cohorts, maybe.
Well, it's more like when you're trying to mentor kids, high school kids, and even college, you know, because it's competitive to try to get a slot if you want to go into the military. You know, everything's a competition all the time.
So then by the time you were junior or senior, you said, I'm going.
I was fully focused on trying to get in.
Okay. So since sophomore year, when you saw that award, you said, I'm doing this.
Yes.
And then what did you do to prepare for that?
Worked hard, tried to get good grades, PT'd hard.
How'd you have to get a congressional?
You have to get a nomination.
How did you go about that if you didn't have that sort of network built?
It's generally a pretty fair process. Most of the congressmen and senators have a board that they have convene and interview the high school students, so that it's not like, hey, my dad knows your dad.
No, I didn't.
Most of the time. And each one has 5 nominations that they can have active at all the academies at any one time. So I went through that whole process of interviewing with the congressman at the time. Yeah. And I got lucky and I got a nomination.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I did
what he said.
I did ROTC for a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Air Force.
Nice.
You realize he just made fun of our OTC, and
I didn't.
now you're doubling down.
I was one of the losers.
It's just a different path. Sometimes I wish I would have gone that route.
This is just proof that ROTC guys become insurance salesmen. All right, like, dang.
It all kind of aligned.
Yeah, it did.
Well, I'll be looking for a job shortly. So,
So then you head to Annapolis,
Yep.
and you referenced tryouts at Annapolis.
Yeah.
What was that?
well, everybody has to do a sport there, whether it's
Oh, you do?
D1, whether it's a varsity team, a club sport, or intramurals. You can't just like hang out in your room all day. And during plebe summer, it starts then, and so as a non-recruited athlete, I went over to tryouts, and it was a pretty quick tryout. And as I got cut from the baseball team,
You had to bat first?
I didn't even get to hit.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I'd tell you, it was the 40-yard dash and 2 throws. That was my tryout.
It wasn't fast enough.
And as I was walking back to my room, the crew house was right there by the baseball field in Annapolis. So I swung in there and I said, never been in a boat. I was like, can I try out here? And they let me try out. And, that it was a plebe rowing team, so it wasn't like anything great. But I was on that team for the full year.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that? Dang.
What's that?
Did you enjoy it?
Not one bit.
It's hard.
I mean, it's great working out, and it was fun, but there were some kids that had rowed before, and I was like the worst guy in the last boat, getting yelled at by the coach the entire time on the water. Stevens, you're doing this or that. It's like, come on, man, get off my ass. But talk about grit and determination. Like some of the most fit athletes are crew guys and gals. So I learned, how to suck it up a lot, because all winter, my plebe year, the Severn River was frozen over, so there was no rowing. So it was all on the Concept 2 erg, and I learned to hate the ergs a lot, because you do seat races. So based on your time, and it's seconds or half a seconds on who's moving up in the pecking order. So guys would get off that thing after putting out for 2,000 meters and vomit, just trying to eke out a little bit more. And so I was probably in the best shape of my life.
So did that prepare you for buds, or is that what you did after?
I would say it certainly helped as part of the process. And a lot of guys on the crew team somehow get billets. It's like crew guys, wrestlers, and water polo players seem to be very successful, because they could just suck it up and grit and grind away and suffer the pain and get going. So it's like that mindset, you don't know it at the time, but it's being instilled in you. Competition every single day. You work a lot in life is going to be based on how hard you work, and that's it, right? So,
And then after graduating in Annapolis, you don't go straight to buds, right?
I did, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So number one, you have to earn a slot, compete against the other 100 people. My year, we had 19 billets to go. So, and then they spread them out throughout the year, so we don't all go to the same class. But I just wanted to get out there and get going as soon as I could. So graduated, didn't take any leave, drove across country, started buds, I think in July.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And first try?
Yeah, I was lucky.
We had a gentleman on that. How many? You probably know Diego.
We served together at SEAL Team 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How many times did Diego say? It was at least 3, I think.
Really?
Maybe
Yeah.
4.
He started later too.
Part of it's luck, part of it's preparation. And back then, I graduated in 1991. There weren't all the resources that there are now, so I had no idea. Like, I knew it was going to suck, and that I had to run fast and do an obstacle course. But like drown proofing is where they tie your feet together and your hands behind your back and toss you in a pool for 20, 30 minutes.
Stresses
I had no
me
idea that
out
was gonna
now
happen.
hearing
It's
it.
like that was hard. All the water stuff was hard.
How did you? Do they give you any clue how to survive that?
They do. You show up generally. Back then it was called 4th phase, but you have a little bit of prep time where they're like, okay, here's swimming. We're going to get you in shape so you don't get injured. Here's drown proofing. Go practice. And I was the guy that was like the wet cat being thrown in the pool, trying to get to the side. The first time I'm like, holy cow, like this is game changer. So, but they put mechanisms in place where you come at 5 a.m. and you do an extra 2 hours of drown proofing. So by the time I got to the class, I was very comfortable doing it. It's just technique and preparation. So,
And probably just controlling your mind and breath, right?
100%.
Is that the technique? Is just the breathing, or?
Breathing is 90% of it. It's you learn to become comfortable in the water, and it's almost like a meditative state, right? You're bobbing up and down in I think it's a 9-foot section of the pool for 10 or 15 minutes. And it's, once you get the hang of it, it's just pretty easy. You get in the rhythm, then you got to swim 100 meters like that. And that's, again, technique. Then you got to just sit there and float for 5 minutes. And then you got to go get your mask at the bottom of the pool and bring it to the side in your teeth. And that's when they tell you to get out. So, but, if you're comfortable in the water, it's not that tough of an evolution, but
Yeah.
it's it can be pretty disconcerting if you're not ready for it.
What's your go-to when you're in some water scenario where your mind does go somewhere you don't want it to? How do you, whether it's today or back then, how do you bring it back?
It's all about breathing techniques and just calming your mind. At least for me, it is. Whether it's box breathing, or just a pattern to calm your central nervous system down. That's super helpful. And as I have gotten older, I realized this is super important. I wish I would have done this as a 20-year-old. Yoga, for example, I love doing hot yoga. But it's not just the physical; it's the breath work and the meditative state, and just calming and being present in the here and now. So generally, when I encounter a super stressful situation, I'll kind of revert to that. It's super easy, and I don't know. I think it's
How do you box breathe when you're bobbing up and down in a pool? That's gonna be a little bit more challenging, though.
it's more like a triangle breathe in, breathe out. Quick breath, breathe in, or the other way around.
So you graduate first time, going to the teams, and how long did you remain within that unit?
So I graduated buds in early 1992, and I wanted to go to SEAL Team 4 because Panama had happened, a year or two prior. I got lucky going back to the East Coast, and I got to SEAL Team 4. And at the time, you didn't do the rest of the training here like they do now. It's called SQT, SEAL Qualification Training. You did that back at the coast you went to as a group. And so I had 6 more months of training to do there. It was called SEAL Tactical Training at the time. It was great training. And then 6 months of probation before you get your trident. And then you're kind of in the mix to get into a platoon. So I spent 3 years at SEAL Team 4. I was an officer, so generally we do one kind of deployment, and then at least at the time move to another SEAL team or somewhere else. And my goal was to stay operational as long as I could. So I went to SEAL Team 8, did a platoon there, and then I went to SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 2. I did a tour there, 2 to 3 year tours, and then I screened to go to Naval Special Warfare Development Group, and then another whole selection assessment training program. Was lucky to make it through that, and then 9/11 happened. So and I stayed operational for 14 years before I, actually asked to go to school and take a break because, it was fine pre 9/11. My wife calls pre 9/11 the fun Navy, and then post 9/11 it was like, all right, you're gone all the time training, and at the development group we were on a pretty quick, deployment cycle. So it was like gone for a period of time, back home, train up. Gone, it was predictable, but it was busy.
Is really intense.
I ended up doing 5 deployments to Afghanistan, 5 to Iraq, and that was, not all before that break. I went to school for a year to get a master's, but then I came back and did more, and it was good.
Holy smokes!
It was good.
What was you sounded like you were very motivated to stay operational. What was driving that?
I don't think anybody joins the SEAL teams to be a staff officer. If they do, they probably have the wrong motivation. The reality is, officers at some point have to move up to the command and control levels, and a part of that, the learning process of OJT is staff work sometimes, whether it's at the Pentagon, being the operations officer somewhere, being on a staff at one of our overseas units. I just wanted to be, in the mix with the boys, doing the work, the actual work, and I was lucky to be able to stay in that mix for so long.
It sounds like you really liked being a leader.
I love being a SEAL. Being a leader.
Yeah. What is it that really drives you, and from a leadership perspective, and how do you characterize your leadership?
Very poor, not effective. I don't know. What drives me, I would say, is the opportunity to do the right thing, make the units better for the right reasons, and focus on the important things, which as a tactical leader, it's all about operational capability. You should be able to do what you say you're going to do, and that's not always the case. And it's making your particular unit the absolute best one there is, because it's a competition as well. We want to be first in and last out, right? And so if there's multiple units competing for that, why would we take SEALs over Green Berets? Or, if you're at a special mission unit, we're similar, but, we have a maritime specialty. Our Army brothers have a land specialty. So we heard a lot of that right after 9/11, like, why are you guys here? Like, well, sea, air, and land stands for sea, air, and land. But, just getting over some of that. So those initial kind of thoughts of like, yeah, you guys should stay in the water. There was plenty of work for everybody, we found out. I mean, early on, I was in the right place at the right time at 9/11 and deployed several weeks later. We thought it was going to be over in about, 2 weeks. We're going to go on this worldwide spree of capturing and killing every terrorist on the planet. It turned into a 20+ year slog of, multiple deployments, burning people out. So we didn't know what we didn't know at the time. But honestly, it's about, it's relevant to what we do at the Honor Foundation too. A lot of guys say they don't want to be salesmen. I'm like, well, you've been selling your capability your entire life. Whether you want to go to sniper school as a young guy, why should we pick you over you? Because there's not unlimited billets. And then as a unit, what platoon gets to go to CENTCOM, Central Command, Afghanistan, Iraq, where there's a kinetic operation going on, while we still have to send some guys to, the Pacific region to train our partner forces. You can't just, nobody at the time really wanted to do that, but we still had to do it. So I would say there was competition at every level, every day.
I wonder, you used the word burnout in there, and you also said you don't know what you don't know at the time. If we transition that like to spousal support,
yeah,
we know it's not easy to be any military spouse, but particularly on the number of deployments that you were on. I mean, that's a lot. What's the secret to the marriage and keeping that healthy through so much demand on you?
I think every equation is different, so I'll caveat it with that. But I think finding a partner who's independent and doesn't rely on the service member as their reason for being there. That was my case for sure. My wife was a Virginia State police officer when we got married for several years. Very independent, had her own career, and so she wasn't relying on me to be, come home. And when I was home, we spent time together. When you find relationships where it's some resentment, you're gone all the time, so when you're home, you got to be with me. But if I wanted to go play golf with you, sometimes I would see situations where the spouse or significant other would be like, well, you're not spending time with me. Like, I can't spend every minute with you, and so some just got sick of the constant deployments. Some, just not good matches. And frankly, some of the guys changed a lot too. So,
Yeah.
But I would say, back to my original point, the independent person who has their own thing going on as well is generally when I see that it works out better.
That's a great point.
No guarantees it's going to work out, but that seems to me to be kind of that one of the magic ingredients.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Honor Foundation. Can you talk about what got you introduced to the Honor Foundation, and then a little bit about what it does and how it works?
Sure. So I was lucky enough to command at the 06 level. I was a group commander in Virginia Beach, and the Honor Foundation was founded and started here in San Diego in started kind of forming in 2013, became an official 501c3 in 2014. And I'll tell you more about what we do. In around 2016, they were doing so good out here that they wanted to migrate to Virginia Beach, which is the East Coast hub of most of the SEAL teams. They got some money to do it, and they were going to have like a grand opening ceremony. The governor came to that ceremony, congressman, mayor, a lot of dignitaries, and I was approached, or I was tasked by my boss to speak at the event as well. I don't know why. I think I was the only guy in town. And so I was like, okay, great. I'd heard of the Honor Foundation, but I didn't know anything about it. So I asked their folks to come tell me about it. He gave me a brief, and I thought in my head that there's no way that you can actually deliver on this. It's too good to be true. Anyways, that was in the back of my head. I went and spoke at this event, and then decided shortly thereafter that I was going to no longer continue in the military. So I was going to transition out myself in about a year. And so...
Was that coincidental, or is it?
No, it had nothing to do with the Honor Foundation. It was just time for me to go do something different. So I figured I would go to their inaugural Virginia Beach class and audit the course, was my mindset. I'm a senior guy. I'm going to go to this course.
It's not really for me. It's just more to
I'm going to
observe.
I'm going to see if it's, actually worth a crap and if they can deliver. I expected nothing except maybe to learn how to write a resume and get some interview techniques. And it was, but I was going in with an open mind, right? I'm going to learn something. And then it was 4 months, twice a week in the evenings for 4 months. And it was game changing. I mean, it was so good that and it helped me so much that I was like, wow, okay, not only did they deliver, and I had done another transition program. It was a million times better than the other one. And I was like, this is great. How do I stay involved? And the founder, I gave him some honest feedback, as we all do. And he invited me to stand up a Special Operations Forces Advisory Board made up of all solid operators from every community to give him advice on like what's going on in the community, put your finger on the pulse of the here and now. So I did that. We're running that, quarterly meetings, helping them out whenever needed. And then I got invited to be on the board of directors, and help them look at the strategic way forward. And that was eye-opening for me, having never been on a board. You got to raise money if you're a board member, by the way. And then he, the founder, decided to move on after 5 years of founding and growing it. And so my passion after coming out was I want to be in the tech startup world. And so I was at a tech startup in Boston, living in Virginia Beach, so commuting occasionally. Spent about 18 months there. And then the opportunity when he decided to leave came to join the team. And I was I just left the drone company. It was a drone tech startup. My wife's like, why don't you put your name in the hat? I'm like, I've never thought of being in a nonprofit. I need to go make some money. You know what I mean? And she's like, it'd be a good fit for you. And so I thought about it and thought she was right and put my name in the hat. And here I am 6.5 years later.
Wow.
So as the CEO. So it's kind of come full circle as a guy who was a student, then on the advisory board, and now the CEO. And for me, it's cool to see because we just continue to evolve and get better. And so the Honor Foundation, for the audience, is a 501c3 that focuses on the special operations community and helps them translate and transition to the private sector. Everybody in the military has to go through this thing called TAP, Transition Assistance Program. And it's depending on the service, it's run by the service. So, as you transition out, you leave your special ops community, you go back to the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Marines, and you do this program that's designed they have to put 200,000 people through it a year. So they're looking towards the lowest common denominator, who's, the guy getting kicked out for being fat or drugs or whatever. And it just isn't good enough for the community of people we serve. And so that's why the Honor Foundation was created, because the men and women of the special ops community have a lot more to give. to society and be leaders in the private and public sector. And that's we're a mechanism to help them do it. And you would think, transition is hard for everybody. It can be even harder for special operators because you're part of a high-performing team. You've worked your whole life to get there. So you volunteered to serve again in the military, one of less than 30% to make it through the selection assessment training program, part of a high-performing team, doing important work. And then that identity's gone, the purpose is gone. And so it's counterintuitive, but a lot of special operators have a tougher time transitioning because of that. You're no longer a SEAL. You're just a dude.
Is it the purpose or the identity, or what do you think's the biggest?
It's the entire equation, and different for everybody. There can be some baggage for some people. This is not the Broken Flipper Club. We're just helping them kind of refine who they are as a human. And that's the step that's often skipped over in a transition program is figuring out who you are first, what's up here, what's your purpose, why are you on this earth. It's things that guys like us don't like to talk about,
Right.
But it's the most important thing because it sets the foundation for then building a resume, coming to a company and saying, hey, I want to work, here potentially, selling insurance. Is it about selling insurance, or is it about the culture that you guys create? I would argue it's probably more about the culture and the people you work with. So it's a process that can't be, figured out in a day or a weekend. And so that's why our program's now 3 months, executive education like program.
You really see it too. We have opportunity to work with some of the people in your cohorts, and
You can see from the cup of coffee, that first cup of coffee you have, and if you're staying in contact over a period of time, they do go through a significant change. And it's amazing that a program like this exists. I think most of the people in the civilian world, they don't get purview to what it looks like for a special force person to transition through that. But maybe the closest thing to that might be like professional athletes.
Right.
And we know what the success and failure rates on that front are. And so if you just kind of cast that in, it's very similar application. If you don't have that program, where would they be?
Yeah. I don't know. I think some would certainly figure it out on their own, right? Some are smart enough to have a penchant for learning and, read or talk to their personal board of directors about all of this stuff. But
What is the secret sauce in the Honor Foundation that gets these really high performing people really starting to question who they are and their identity? And
so if I told you, it wouldn't be a secret. But, no, honestly, there's no big secret. It's taking the time and effort to do it. But number one, we run our program in a cohort setting. So it's not just you go online and click in whenever you want to do it. So you're with your brothers and sisters who have shared experiences, right? We intentionally don't cram it into a week. You probably do it if it was full-time all day, every day, cram it into a week. We do a couple hours, create time and space for it to marinate, go home. It really spurs a lot of great conversations. And then there's a deliberate process that we go through. So phase one is all about you. So we go through a lot of exercises about purpose, identity, preferences, how to talk about yourself. Because despite, some of my colleagues writing books and things like that, 99.9% of us don't like to talk about ourselves. It's all about we, the team. So you got to flip that to me. What value do I bring to you? And then it's kind of giving them the tactical tools. You do have to have a resume. Should be on LinkedIn, even though you're a top secret spooky guy that has no social media presence. Get away from that and get on LinkedIn and get out there. You have to understand compensation, how to do research on a company, how to interview with normal humans, not in the team room, not in the locker room kind of thing. And then it's exposing them to what's out there, where they might fit in. What's the art of the possible for you as a former operator to fit in somewhere? It's going to make you happy. We kind of pair that with an executive coach, an outside perspective, so they have an outlet to talk to, not their family, zero consequences. And then again, we talk to folks like you who are willing to have a cup of coffee with them or and just say, here's what I do, and just reps of that. So by the time they come to transition, it's not a cliff; it's more of a glide slope and a smooth landing. But it's hard, and they got to do the work. I will tell them that we're not a jobs placement program. You're going to do the work just like you did getting into the community, and this is probably your biggest transition in life. So put the work in. And so we're accountability partners.
There's so many valuable assets that directly correlate between special force members when they're active military and when they become somebody a part of an organization in the civilian world. Growth mindset is definitely something I just see from so many. But I'm curious, I would imagine one of the harder parts of the job of the Honor Foundation, there's some mental armor around them. And just cracking that first door open. I think about like somebody like a Vun who's going to come in and get these tough men and women to play with Legos and like think about the world in a way they probably never have, and think about themselves in a vulnerable way, maybe that they're not used to. How do you just crack that door open to start that process?
Well, it doesn't happen on day one. I'll tell you that. We get we do have believers that come in and they're all in from day one because they've heard it from their buddies. So that's a big part of it. It's the word of mouth. Like just do it. Believe in the process. We get some tourists who are along for the ride. And then we get terrorists who are like, "This is dumb. I'm not doing that."
I think we know one of those.
Right now, we have a friend that might be that guy.
And so it starts on day one. We just do an orientation. We're very open. We invite spouses, and we have them all start talking about themselves. What are you scared about in transition, or what worries you? What are you excited about?
I didn't know you brought their spouses in on that.
We offer it to them, right? So believe it or not, some guys don't tell their spouses that they're welcome. Yeah. So it's a methodical process, and again, it doesn't happen on day one. Then we get to priorities and preferences, and it's a very interactive session. We make them talk, and then I think we go through an exercise around Simon Sinek's "Start with Why."
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever read that book or seen his
Love
TED Talk. So we love that concept too, not for as a business, but for you as a human. What is your why? Figure that out first. And so that's typically a 2 to 3 night, again, 3 hours a pop, where we break them out in small groups, again, with their peers. And we got guys telling stories, somebody witnessing it, and another person asking questions, and we flip it. And once the first person kind of cracks into the deep stuff, it happens. And then we have a story night, and they all have to get up and tell a story, like a 5-minute story, again, to get them talking about themselves, not the team. And some of those stories are immediately deep and impactful, like tear-jerking, and you will, but once that happens and somebody cracks the spigot, then it's game over, because we create this safe space of, again, like-minded people, shared experiences, zero judgment, and what happens in the classroom stays in the classroom. It's part of the process. So that's how we do it, and it generally works.
Are you able to share some fun success stories?
Success stories?
Yeah. I mean, most of them are success stories, but
I mean, there's a lot of them. We've had people go into the pro sports world through introductions and cups of coffee as, not as athletes, but as, on the management side. We had a guy here in San Diego who I think he was doing mock interviews with somebody from Apple and didn't have a college degree. And there was a position open at Apple required a college degree. And they basically, they liked him so much that they ended up creating a different position for him to go work at Apple. Thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
We also take people on treks, visit, I think you supported it, where they visit just the local area and then they might go to a bigger city. And years ago, a buddy of mine on a trek, we went to Airbnb, and we always give them resumes of like, hey, just so you know, here's who's in the audience. And it wasn't, the intent is not to necessarily find jobs, it's to expose them to different industries and cultures. Well, he's been working for Airbnb and was like the head of customer success for, the entire organization. He's crushing it. So things like that happen quite a bit.
That's cool. Is that a guy we call next time we have a complaint at
Airbnb.
You might.
Actually, we have some Airbnbs. Maybe when people stay at them and complain against us. What's next for you? Are you planning to be at the Honor Foundation for a while? Is that something you talk about or not? Or
I mean, I'd never in a million years thought I'd be here. This is the longest single time span I've had at a job. The Navy, you moved every 2 to 3 years, and we have a great team. I love it, and it's purposeful work that, it's not easy. Like, we got to go hustle and raise money, so there's no financial burden on people coming through our program. And we never want to degrade quality, but we want to help anybody in the special ops. So, there's always a tension there of our revenue source is not directly tied to our product. So that but it's been fun kind of building that out and building the team and expanding. So I'm having a great time.
Can you talk about the fundraising side of it? We have a lot of nonprofit clients and support a lot of nonprofits. It's a challenge when you don't just have a recurring revenue theme that's, not guaranteed, but contractual or whatnot. How does that process work? If you're comfortable speaking to the budget, how much you have to raise each year to make all the magic happen, and who are your ideal donors?
Anybody that wants to donate, lots of money is an ideal donor. On the fundraising side, it's a hybrid approach. You can't just be singularly focused. So other foundations that have more to give but don't necessarily want to stand up a program and see us as best in class, that's one source. Events, having events, fundraising events is another one. We do them all over the country. Our board goes out and helps hustle and raise money. High net worth individuals is great. Corporate sponsorships is a part of it. And then little campaigns. So the micro donors who are donating $20, $50 a month, it all helps. We have not taken any significant government money, 0 federal dollars. We've started working with some states who believe what we believe in, and state of Tennessee has been really generous to us.
That's great.
Their governor said they want to make Tennessee the best place for veterans to live, and he put money where his mouth is, and gave us some seed money to stand up a Tennessee campus for Fort Campbell. So it's a constant cycle, and my mantra has been to, not just sock it away and have this huge pot of money. It's to sock enough away to have a little bit of runway, not enough, but deploy it so we can help more people. And we're not yet helping everybody in the special ops community who needs it, and so we have a lot more work to do.
How many people have you helped?
Well, I don't know the exact number because we just graduated like eight cohorts last week, but it's around 3,800 through the full program. And then we do a bunch of one-day seminars too, so hundreds more there. Something else we're doing is we have a spousal program that if you're in the program, your spouse can come through and do a workshop, largely based around strengths and communication. So we've done several hundred there.
What about Vector?
Yeah, so now the big idea is, okay, so special operations community is there's about 70,000 in special ops, 60,000 uniform wearing people, full-timers. So that number is pretty small. And about 2,500 transition out every year. When you think about the larger military, a couple million, about 200,000 transition every year. So our vision is to serve as a catalyst for overhauling the entire DoD transition system, which, as I said earlier, is mediocre, if I'm being generous. And so we have this new program called Vector Accelerator, which is asynchronous, online. It's kind of our phase 1 stuff. So any veteran can come do it and try to get their mindset, figure out what it is that drives them before they just chase a job. And so it's Vector Accelerator is the name of it. VectorAccelerator.org is where people can sign up. And I'm pretty excited about that as well. Right. So it's kind of like DNA of THF. but run separately, right?
Technology platform, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe spoke about it a little bit. It sounds amazing, great opportunity. How does, we're on the very, very final approval stage with SkillBridge. Does SkillBridge dovetail into anything you all are doing?
Sure. If people are doing our program, a year out, then they're kind of getting ahead of the SkillBridge, which should be the last 6 months. So what we do is prep people. So we don't officially have anything to do with SkillBridge. It's a great program for the military member where they can do it's actually might be getting chopped down a little bit right now with the current administration. Yep. Based on rank, but 4 to 6 months at the tail end of your career, where you can do an internship with a company, if they go through the work of doing the approvals, which I don't think is that hard. Maybe it's a little painful for you all.
On our side or your side? Or their side?
Your side. I mean, I don't know.
It takes a little bit of work.
It is hard. Yeah. But worth it, and the idea is to expose them. I don't think there's any, they're still in the military, so you can't pay them. So it's free chicken for you. It's kind of a test run for them. And if it doesn't work out, they no skin off anybody's back, but they get a rep of working at a company. So I think it's great if they have the time. The debate is, if somebody goes to do a SkillBridge, they're still on your books. You don't get a backfill until they're retired or gone. So some commanders choose not to let people do it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Huh, that's interesting. It is.
Because they're paying them.
They're paying them, and they can't get a backfill for a critical billet
until they're out.
Until they're out of the military.
That makes sense. I didn't know that. Huh. It is challenging enough on the employer side, and especially if you're not used to navigating DoD or government process, it's not super easy. Our goal is going to be, we have a project management team that helps implement process, technology, et cetera, inside our organization. When we got about halfway through it, we said, hey, let's really get a project plan on this. And our goal is to become an educator of other businesses who want to implement it. And then, we're not doing it as a monetary service, but just start trying to educate other businesses. Here's all the steps. Here's what we had to do, lessons learned, try to fast track other people through it, because San Diego is a military town. All of our clients could be engaging at some level somebody to help them transition. So it's something we're passionate about. We got to figure it out ourselves first. So we're close to starting it.
Yeah. I would also offer up this. The Special Operations Command has a separate program called Through the Warrior Care Program, and they will do internships. So hopefully it's a less daunting administrating task. But so if somebody's special operator in their system, then it could be another pathway for you.
Yeah, we'll have to learn more about that off camera.
Yeah, go to Rapid Fire.
Let's do it.
Let's go with what's your favorite childhood TV show?
Favorite childhood TV show? Combat. Vic Morrow.
All right.
Okay, so I know my answer on this, and I'm curious if you, the one food I refuse to eat is shit on a shingle, because I had a Navy grandpa, and I would hide the corned beef whenever I saw it coming.
It's a good answer.
What's your least favorite food to eat?
Canned peas.
Equally as good.
There you go. Are you a beach or a mountain guy?
Mountain.
Family tradition, either one that started when you were a kid that you carry through, or one that you've created within your family now that you really cherish?
Elf on a Shelf.
I like it.
Man, that Elf on the Shelf stresses me out.
I don't know, my 22-year-old son doesn't seem to think it's too cool anymore, but no, honestly, it's Christmas time, just getting together as a family and seeing everybody, putting in the time to see everybody.
Yeah, connect back up.
Last one, what was your first car?
My first car, good question. The first car that I was able to drive, because my sister totaled the other car, I bet she's 3 years older, a 1972 Ford Maverick that cost $500 and was completely rusted out, floor pan. So the exhaust would come straight up into the driver's compartment. It was
Windows
an
down at all
absolute
times.
piece of crap that I hated. Light blue, Carolina blue Ford Maverick, worst car ever made.
That's great.
I kind of asked this question earlier a little bit, but the question we ask all our guests is like, hey, what's next for you? But you could also answer that, cast into the Honor Foundation if it's better that way, wherever you'd like to take it.
Or what's next for the Honor Foundation?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have, like I told you guys earlier, we're not yet where we need to be by serving everybody in the special operations community or giving them the ability to come through our program. So Fort Carson, Colorado is a place where there's a lot of special operators. Savannah, Georgia has several units there. In Columbus, Georgia. Columbus is the head of the Ranger Regiment with several operational units under it. Savannah has one of our helicopter squadrons and a Ranger battalion. And then Fort Carson has a special forces group. So we want to have a physical presence there. We want to take Vector to the next level. And, we have 2 virtual programs, campuses running now. And if we need to expand that to help anybody else in the rest of the world, Hawaii, Okinawa, deployed overseas, Stuttgart, Germany. We had a guy who was actually, before the Ukraine fell, he was in the embassy in the Ukraine and came through our virtual program. So we actually have pretty good worldwide reach. And then I'd say like this, what we're doing with the spouses, I think, has been met with catastrophic success, and we're going to have to put some more resources into that. And if there's more for the families that they need, we're going to help them. Right. And so, and that paired with, the workforce is changing every day, as you know. So what is AI going to do? What can we do with AI? So we're always solving problems, kind of evolving. We can test and evaluate pretty quickly since we don't take any government money. So I value the flexibility and agility over a rote way of doing something. So, I mean, honestly, it's just maintaining that agility to best serve the people coming through our program.
That's great. Was that intentional not to take federal money, or is that just the way that it evolved?
Well, we never approached them, and as we are approaching them, I think I spend a lot of time educating folks in DC. I don't know if I would not be opposed to it if the strings attached gave me the ability to retain, our operational agility.
Yeah,
certainly help us.
Yeah.
Well, this part on the Discover the Difference is kind of your reflection back, and you're looking at your journey. When you look back at maybe your younger self, maybe you as a sophomore, what kind of advice would you give him, knowing what you know today?
Great question. I would say that being bold. Don't be scared to be bold and innovative. Right. Take that first step. Go approach the coach, or whatever, and see if you can practice with him. But what I don't think I did well was I didn't really seek out mentors early enough on, and I wish I had. I wish I kind of found some really great mentors. And I have many great mentors, but it took me a while to kind of get there, right? And again, I'm not the smartest guy, but probably didn't even realize I was getting mentored by some people, but really digging into the mentorship piece and then expanding on that. I would encourage that. So
is that something that you really encourage today with?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it stems from, we do it in the Honor Foundation because it's hard to ask for help, right? Especially when you're a relatively successful person in the special ops community. But so ask for the help. Who's going to tell you no? Hey, sir, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions about what it's like to be a Navy guy or a insurance guy, like a successful businessman? That's a tough hurdle to get over. So ask for help.
I had connected a Marine Raider to a gentleman in our industry who is looking to go into the life science sector. And this friend of ours, he said, hey, what what advice, it was kind of his closing statement, what advice, if things we haven't talked about or whatever, what's one piece of advice I should do? And the guy told him something that I thought was genius. He was like, what I would do is every person you have a cup of coffee with, ask them if they will remain in some sort of mentorship capacity and be like a personal board. And I would put a regular cadence out to them every 2 weeks or so and say, this is what I've done since I last spoke with you. This is what I'm going to do next. And this is where I need help. And he said, just ask 1, 2, 3 things. And then as you grow through your cups of coffee, the number of people who could solve that problem you're dealing with, it'll become easier and easier. And I was like, wow, that was like such powerful advice he gave him. I thought it was fantastic.
That is brilliant. You know, the follow-up piece of that in and of itself is critical. You know, I think we've come to a time in society where it's not a common thing for somebody to follow up. And we certainly encourage that. The honor founder is like email, text. But I mean, you send somebody a handwritten note nowadays, like
worth its weight in gold.
Makes a difference.
So last question here, going along the theme of discover the difference. When you reflect on your life, you've had a ton of success at the highest levels. What's that secret ingredient inside you? If you had to pick it out and say, this is my key to success.
Well, I would argue that.
No, you're so humble.
Appreciate that
So
comment.
humble.
I would argue
Where you set the example about talking about yourself.
That's right.
Oh,
I like that.
Well, I've reflected on this a bit. I would say it's always having a penchant for learning, right? And not being satisfied with the status quo. Not saying you can't enjoy your lot in life, you know, but being curious about what else is out there. And that helps develop relationships, and that helps develop new pathways of learning, keeps your mind fresh. And I think it helps you live longer, quite frankly, and not get static in thinking. With some aging parents, I'm kind of discovering some of this of like what makes the difference. And it keeps it fun and fresh too. I don't like to be stagnant, you know, and it's always about finding out new things and being curious.
Well, it's the curious is literally one of our core values.
Oh, really?
And it's a core essence to what we think creates success in the business world, in sales, or like so much of life. It directly connects to growth mindset, right?
100%.
And, but it's a little bit more of a fun, playful way to think and approach. So I love that you said that. For those that want to learn more about Honor Foundation, Vector Accelerator, or anything else that you may have your hands in, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Check out our website. It's honor.org. We're on most of the social media platforms as the Honor Foundation. See our logo, our shield logo on there. Vector Accelerator, you can link to it from honor.org, but it also has its separate website, vectoraccelerator.org, all run together. Those are the best ways. And, we're on LinkedIn quite a bit. Vector's posting some good stuff and little micro lessons learned for veterans to potentially get into that program. So, yeah.
The same thing if people want to get involved in the Honor Foundation.
Yep. You can find all that. We're always looking for volunteers to help us with the program, coaches, mentors, faculty, volunteers to look at resumes, sit on panels, things like that, host us for a visit, donate money. That's all. It's all spelled out pretty clearly on the website. So please check it out, and we'd love to have you help.
Awesome. I literally just emailed somebody on your team a follow-up this morning about that, and we'll have our team out again at the next swim. And
awesome.
Look forward to continuing to support everything that you're doing.
Appreciate everything you guys are doing, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.